Biggie Smalls had been murdered during a drive-by shooting while he was visiting Los Angeles in March of '97. With the incident occurring sometime following an after-party, the partygoers and others caught segments of the event on tape. The FBI also have their own personal surveillance footage of the incident taking place. Journalists and investigators have attempted with analysing the footage, pointing out people of interest in the case who appear on video. In this video, we're going to break down the unsolved death of Biggie Smalls and take a look into some of the footage that was captured on the night.
Tell that fat motherfucker he's not gonna make it out of LA alive.
Biggie was in Los Angeles in March of 1997, where he was accompanied by Sean Puff Daddy Combs, who was the head of Bad Boy Records, being the label which Biggie was signed to. Biggie was supposed to be in London to perform, but Puffy had got him to go to Los Angeles to accompany him, while Puffy worked on his album out there, and the two attended several media events together. Puff Daddy's bodyguard Eugene Dill had revealed how they had been getting death threats as soon as they arrived in Los Angeles. This aspect was shown in the 2009 movie Notorious. They had been receiving death threats due to them being associated to the people who were blamed for murdering Tupac Shakur, which occurred 6 months prior. Puff Daddy had aligned himself with the Southside Compton Crips through an alleged New York drug trafficker by the name of Eric Zip Martin. Zip had introduced Puffy to a Southside Compton Crip shot caller by the name of Keefy D. Keefy D claimed Puffy would give the Southside Compton Crips tickets to the concerts which he performed at in Los Angeles to protect him from who Keefy D claimed Puffy called the Big CEO. Suge Knight was this CEO, who is the head of Death Row Records in Los Angeles. Suge Knight was from Compton and had aligned himself with the mob Piru Compton Bloods, with the Bloods naturally being the enemies of the Crips. Mob James, who was once Suge Knight's head of security when he was using Blood gang members as his main form of security, claimed in an interview that the Compton Piru Bloods and the Southside Compton Crips didn't have a problem with each other until a feud between Suge Knight and Puffy had begun. Puff Daddy and Suge Knight were once friends and would hang out with each other when they were in each other's territories. Suge Knight allowed Puff Daddy to use samples from Death Row Records for free, being the samples of Dr. Dre used on Biggie's first album Ready to Die. Suge Knight and Puffy fell out by 1995, and Suge Knight admitted in a 2017 prison interview of how he had intentions to sign Biggie, much like how he had signed former Bad Boy artist Craig Mack when starting Death Row East.
I never had a problem with Biggie. In reality, my plan was to bring him to Death Row.
Suge Knight dissed Puff Daddy at the 1995 Source Awards, where he had hinted that Biggie should sign to Death Row if he didn't want the executive producer, aka Puff Daddy, to be dancing all in his videos.
Any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, and won't have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the video, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row.
Puffy's security killed Suge Knight's friend and Blood gang member Jake Robles a month later, while Puffy and Suge Knight were at Jermaine Dupri's birthday party, where Suge Knight also allegedly slapped Jermaine Dupri. Former president of Bad Boy Records Kirk Burroughs filed a lawsuit against Puffy in 2003, where he claimed Puffy was a member of a secret criminal group called the Enterprise, which allegedly carried out murder and extortion. Kirk Burroughs in the lawsuit claimed that Puff Daddy allegedly sanctioned the hit of Jake Robles.
I think Jake's thing was more of a setup job.
Southside Compton Crip Orlando Anderson, who is Keefy D's nephew, was with Puffy at the party when Jake Robles was killed. Puffy was believed to have been being extorted by New York gangsters Jimmy Henchman, Haitian Jack and King Tut, with it being alluded that this was the Enterprise mentioned in Kirk Burroughs' 2003 lawsuit. The Enterprise was then aligned with the Southside Compton Crips, being through Eric Zip Martin. Lil C's, who was a member of Biggie Smalls' rap group Junior Mafia, claimed he had seen the Southside Compton Crips providing protection at a concert in Anaheim, California.
Like they was backstage, no show. Anaheim, I was there.
Keefy D claimed at this same concert that Puffy had taken a group of Crips into a hotel room afterwards, where he allegedly for the very first time spoke on putting a hit out on Suge Knight and Tupac.
Which of those four is it when you talk to him about murdering Tupac? Tupac and Suge, you mean?
Yeah.
Tupac had signed to Death Row Records in October of 1995 and had animosity towards Puffy and Biggie stemming from a 1994 shooting which was set up by Jimmy Henchman, who was with Puff Daddy in a recording studio which Tupac was invited to, then set up to get robbed, resulting in him being shot 5 times by King Tut. Puffy and Biggie were in Los Angeles in March of 1996 to attend the Soul Train Music Awards, which Tupac and Suge Knight were also attending. Keefy D and the Southsiders were also there providing security for the venue. A confrontation broke out and Biggie's friend C. Gutter had pulled out a gun on Suge Knight and Tupac, but the Fruits of Islam security service had broken up the altercation before anything worse had happened. Gene Dill, who was Puff Daddy's bodyguard, claimed that after this, when they had went back indoors, Puffy had said out of frustration that he didn't care if Pac had to die, he didn't care if Biggie had to die, and he didn't care if Suge Knight had to go to jail, but things had to change. Tupac had released Hit 'Em Up in June of 1996, which was a diss track towards Biggie and Puffy. Tupac had claimed to have slept with Biggie's wife in the track, where witnesses at Death Row Records claimed that he took her back to his hotel room after they had recorded a song together for his 1996 album All Eyes on Me. Puff Daddy's baby mother Misa Houghton was also allegedly having an affair with Suge Knight, and an unreleased magazine was printed which had Suge Knight with Misa and Puffy's child on the cover, with the headline reading, "What the East Coast won't take care of, the West Coast will." Keefy D claimed in his secretly recorded LAPD confession that after this, in the summer of 1996, Puffy had allegedly met up with him at the Greenblatt's Deli in Los Angeles, where $1 million bounty was put on Suge Knight and Tupac's heads, being to the Southside Crips. Suge Knight and Tupac were shot at 13 times in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996, which took place hours after they had assaulted Orlando Anderson, being in the MGM Grand lobby. Orlando Anderson was with Keefy D and Eric Zip Martin, who was in communication with Puffy while they were in Las Vegas. Orlando Anderson was pointed out by Suge Knight's associate and Blood gang member Trayvon Lane, who had had his death row chain snatched by Orlando Anderson and the Southside Crips prior to the event, as there was a rumour in Compton that Puffy had put a bounty on the chains. Trayvon Lane pointed out Orlando Anderson, saying that he was aligned with Puffy, causing Tupac to run over and attack him, followed by the Blood entourage and Suge Knight. Keefy D claimed in the confession that it was the Southside Crips who had carried out the shooting, with Tupac dying shortly after as a result. Keefy D claimed that Puffy had contacted them afterwards through Zip to ask if it was them who had carried it out, and had claimed that Zip would give them the $1 million. Puffy later bragged about this on several songs, with one being Can't Hold Me Down, with the lyrics being, quote, "We make hits that'll rearrange your whole set, and got a Benz that I ain't even drove yet." In the song Muscle Game, Puffy says, quote, "F with me, I'll put $1 million on your head." Gene Dill claimed he saw $1 million check which Jimmy Henchman had in his back pocket, which allegedly was supposed to go to Keefy D and was given to Zip, with the intentions of it going to the Southsiders. FBI documents had revealed that Zip had kept the money and had bought a nightclub which he had called the Zip Code. 6 months after the hit which killed Tupac and placed Suge Knight in prison, Puffy and Biggie were in Los Angeles and the death threats began. Biggie went on the LA radio show called The Wake Up Show on March 1st, 1997, where he recited the lyrics to his songs Last Kiss Goodnight and You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You, which contained disses towards Tupac after his death. Biggie was also filming a music video for the song Hypnotize, which was a single off of his upcoming album Life After Death. Gene Dill, being Puffy's bodyguard, attended the filming, where he claimed he had gotten a call from New York where he was told to vest up, getting intel that people were coming to kill them.
Biggie Small's murder follows by 6 months a remarkably similar killing of Tupac Shakur, investigators believe may have been responsible for the murder of Biggie Small.
Puffy and Biggie, along with others, went to the Soul Train Music Awards on March 8th, 1997, where they presented an award on stage and were booed while doing it.
What's up, Cali?
Vibe magazine were hosting an after party later on that night, and Puffy and Biggie had split up, with Puffy and his bodyguard Gene Dill going to music executive Andre Harrell's house to wait for the after party to start. Gene Dill had gotten a call from an associate of the R&B group Jodeci, where the person told Gene not to go to the after party as something was going to happen to them while there. Gene had told Puffy before leaving, but he replied by saying he didn't want to hear it and told Gene Dill that he didn't have to go to the party if he didn't want to. Gene and Puffy then met Biggie outside, who was in a car, and they went to the after party, which was held at the Peterson Automotive Museum. Keefy D met up with Puffy at the after party, but Puffy had told him not to get too close, as the FBI had been following him while there. These are FBI surveillance photos of Puffy and Biggie, which were taken while they were in Los Angeles. The fire department closed the party early due to overcrowding, and everybody had to leave the venue at midnight. Puffy and Biggie had left the party, and Gene Dill had gotten the drivers to pull up the 2 Chevy Suburbans outside the venue. The Chevy Suburbans had government chips installed in them, which meant they couldn't go into a high speed, as the chip would cut off the fuel supply when reaching high speeds, forcing the cars to slow down. A shooting had taken place on the opposite side of the venue, which drew all law enforcement to the opposite side of where Biggie and Puffy were at, after somebody had discharged a firearm into the air. Puffy and Biggie were downstairs waiting to leave, and Gene Dill saw a man approaching, dressed in a blue and white striped t-shirt. This person has been seen in footage of the night, and has become known as the mystery of the striped shirt guy. Police reports also mention a striped shirt guy as approaching Puffy and Gene before leaving. Gene Dill claimed that he did not say anything to them and had turned around after getting close up, with the man never being identified. A second man then approached Puffy and Gene Dill, who Gene identified as Amir Muhammad, who Gene Dill claimed was dressed in a Fruits of Islam uniform. Amir Muhammad, who was also known as Harry Billups, was rumoured as being a member of the Nation of Islam, who is allegedly involved in carrying out hits. However, he has denied these claims and says he is involved in real estate and was not there on the night of the incident. Gene Dill identified Amir Muhammad in the 2002 documentary Biggie and Tupac, and also to FBI agent Phil Carson, describing how he approached Puffy before Gene Dill brandished his gun, where Amir then walked into the direction of the shooter's vehicle. Gene Dill and Puffy got in the lead car, with Gene requesting to Puffy that he ride on the side of the truck, but Puffy told him not to. Biggie and Lil C's got in the following truck behind them. Gene Dill told their driver to run the red light that was approaching, as he didn't want to be sitting ducks, with the driver following the order. Biggie's truck stopped at the red light, and directly opposite Biggie's door, a black SS Chevy Impala with chrome wheels was waiting on the corner. 4 shots were fired into Biggie, with one of the bullets travelling into his heart. Gene Dill claimed that Puffy had ducked down in his seat and grabbed his head when the shots rang out. The shooting was partially caught on video.
A Texas woman came forward and contacted America's Most Wanted and said she had videotape that she took that night.
They were focusing on Biggie's car when the shots were fired. Camera just went shake like, you're nervous.
The FBI have their own footage of the shooting taking place, with snapshots being shown to Gene Dill by agents, with Gene claiming it was showed that they were in a vantage point in a building opposite the museum, with the only building there now being a Consulate General building. After the Chevy Impala drove off, Puffy got out of the car and ran towards Biggie's car, with the only person left in the car being Biggie. Gene Dill and another person in their truck began to chase the Chevy Impala, but the government chip within the truck didn't allow them to drive at high speeds, so they were unable to catch it. They returned to the scene in Gene Dill, Lil C's and Puffy, along with the driver, then got into the car with Biggie and began to drive to the hospital, with the 911 call also being caught on tape.
We need an ambulance on Fairfax and Wilshire. Please, Los Angeles. We have a man shot. We have a man shot.
Gene Dill helped get Biggie out of the car while at the hospital and claimed he was dead on arrival.
Who killed rapper Notorious B.I.G. and were LAPD officers involved?
The last thing the city wanted was a scandal involving the possibility that sworn minority officers could be involved in the assassination of a superstar rap artist.
LAPD detective Russell Paul was assigned to investigate the murder, with his findings pointing towards corrupt LAPD cops of the Rampart scandal, who were believed to be linked to Death Row Records, allegedly being behind the murder. Russell Paul's investigative police reports were given over to the FBI and have since been released on the FBI website. The findings claimed that LAPD Rampart cops David Mack, Rafael Perez and Kevin Gaines were allegedly involved in the murder and were believed to have gotten assistance from Amir Muhammad to help carry it out, who David Mack had gone to college with. The Rampart scandal was one of the worst police corruption scandals in US history, with the cops being associated to Death Row Records, allegedly supplying unofficial security for the label. Sharifa Knight, who was Suge Knight's ex-wife and was the manager to Death Row artists such as Snoop Dogg, was found to have been dating Rampart cop Kevin Gaines, where she claimed Snoop would pay the Rampart cops in cash to supply security for certain events. Kevin Gaines was murdered by fellow cop Frank Liger 9 days after Biggie Smalls was murdered, and the car Gaines was murdered in was under Suge Knight's ex-wife's name, which then alerted Russell Paul of Rampart involvement within Death Row Records. Rampart cop Rafael Perez was arrested for stealing over 8 pounds of cocaine from the LAPD evidence locker, which was suspected to have been carried out in order to frame Frank Liger for murdering Kevin Gaines. Kenneth Boagni was Rafael Perez's cellmate, who was set to testify in court of information which Perez had given him, which concerned the murder of Biggie Smalls. Boagni had claimed that Perez had told him that he was there on the night that Biggie had gotten murdered, and how Death Row had reached out to Rampart cop David Mack to set up a hit on both Puffy and Biggie on the night it took place. Boagni claimed that Perez had allegedly told him how the hit was for $1 million and $500,000 was given up front, with Mack then allegedly using Perez and Gaines as accomplices, and also allegedly reaching out to Amir Muhammad to supply further assistance with the hit. Rafael Perez and David Mack had met a man called Mark Hyland, who they called the Bookkeeper, with Death Row artist Daz Dillinger claiming to have seen Mark Hyland around Death Row. Mark Hyland, during a jail interview in the 2002 documentary Biggie and Tupac, claimed he transported money for the cops between Los Angeles and Phoenix, Arizona, being for the hit on Biggie, after he had attended the meeting where the cops allegedly planned the hit.
I transported monies interstate between Los Angeles and Phoenix to arrange the hit on Biggie Small.
Kenneth Boagni had claimed that Perez had told him the original plan was for Kevin Gaines to intercept Puffy's car for gunmen to allegedly then carry out the hit, but the car ran a red light foiling the plan. This was corroborated by Gene Dill, as he was the person who had told the driver to run the red light. With it only being Biggie who was murdered, Boagni claimed David Mack was informed of how he would not receive the other $500,000. David Mack and other officers robbed a Bank of America 8 months later, where they stole $722,000, which still remains unaccounted for. David Mack, Rafael Perez, and the Chief of Police Bernard Park's daughter travelled to Las Vegas the following day with the money. Kenneth Boagni claimed Perez had told him that the money was used to pay Amir Muhammad after the full amount was not given over due to the botched job of only Biggie dying. David Mack was arrested for the bank robbery, and a gun, along with the same ammunition which was used in the Biggie murder, was found at the scene of his home, with the bullets being buried under the floorboards of his house. A black SS Chevy Impala with chrome wheels, matching the description of the shooter's vehicle, had also have been found. Police scanners and tactical gear stolen from LAPD inventory was also found at his home. Russell Paul, along with FBI agent Phil Carson, wanted to arrest Mack for Biggie's murder based on these findings, but their superiors didn't allow them. The declassified FBI documents of Paul's findings claim that witnesses had named the cops as being at the event, talking on cell phones at the Vibe party, most likely tracking Biggie and Puffy's movements while setting up the hit.
Perez told him he was at the scene of the Notorious B.I.G. murder. Perez was working security. Perez had a cell phone. Perez said he called over to Mac, David Mack, on his cell phone. Perez told Mac that Biggie Smalls was in his truck.
Tupac's former manager, Leila Steinberg, who also knew David Mack, had identified him as being at the Vibe party in the 2021 documentary Last Man Standing. Russell Paul claimed that he believes police scanners and radios were used to pull off the murder. His findings were used by Biggie's family in a civil trial against the LAPD along with the city of Los Angeles for $500 million. This lawsuit was dropped after an LAPD cop put forward a different theory of it being a blood gang member who carried out the murder. LAPD cop Greg Kading was tasked with investigating the Biggie Smalls murder after Russell Paul, which assisted with getting the $500 million lawsuit dropped. Greg Kading's task force had falsified a confession letter which was presented to Suge Knight's ex-girlfriend, who used the alias of Teresa Swan, where he had told her that her kids would be taken off of her and that she could serve jail time, with these being false statements as Kading had faked the letter. The fake letter also came with falsified documents of a blood gang member called Wardell Faust, with the fake documents appearing as police records to go with a falsified confession letter written by the task force which named Wardell Faust as the triggerman. Wardell Faust was a notorious blood gang member who was known for allegedly of having caught bodies in the past and was known for putting in work. The fake confession letter written by the task force included Suge Knight's ex-girlfriend as a co-conspirator, where she was then told that she would be implicated unless she cooperated, which was all fake information unknown to her. Suge Knight's ex-girlfriend, after being presented the falsified confession letter, along with the information that she would lose her kids or receive prison time unless she cooperated with the fake documents, went on to tell Greg Kading that she helped coordinate the murder of Biggie Smalls. She had told Kading on how during multiple prison visits while Suge Knight was in Mule Creek State Prison, how she had assisted him with getting information back to the Bloods to murder Biggie Smalls in retaliation for Tupac's death. She told Kading that she then got in touch with Wardell Faust, who was known for carrying out hits, with the bounty being $25,000. She claimed she met with Wardell Faust at a Denny's in Lakewood, California, where Wardell Faust was then told that he would be paid after the hit was carried out. Former Death Row Records head of security Reggie Wright Jr., who was a former Compton cop and was also implicated in the cop theory, claimed in Greg Kading's murder rap documentary of how the general manager of Death Row Records, called Norris Anderson, had inquired on how to get $25,000 to one of Suge Knight's female associates. Suge Knight's girlfriend claimed that $9,000 was transferred into her account, which was then withdrawn and given to Wardell Faust 2 weeks after the shooting, and an additional $4,000 had also been given. She then allegedly kept the extra $12,000 as part of her role in the plot. Wardell Faust also had a dark-coloured Chevy SS Impala which matched the shooter's vehicle, which had been purchased by Suge Knight. A photo had been released of a car matching the shooter's vehicle by an employee of One Stop Auto, which was Suge Knight's personal auto shop in Monte, California, being in the 90s. The owner of the car has not been identified. Poochie was never identified as being at the scene of the Biggie Smalls incident. Poochie was murdered in 2003, being shot 10 times by an AK-47 while he was riding a motorcycle. The information which was created from falsified documents by Greg Kading's task force to counteract the LAPD theory went on to drop the $500 million lawsuit against the LAPD, being in 2010, after Kading had gotten a confession through the bogus documents in 2009. In this video, we took a look into the unsolved murder of Biggie Smalls. We took a look into some of the footage which was captured on the night, plus the events leading up to it. We also looked into not only the cop theory, but the gang theory too. Let me know what your thoughts are on all this in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, smash the thumbs up button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and press that bell button so you can get all the future notifications for when I upload. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.